Let's do this one first. Upon returning to your haven, you find a small scrap of paper lying on your windowsill. You need a favor. If you're still up for it, come meet me in Prospect. Once again, you cross the gate of Prospect Park and head straight where you last saw the feral duo. Minutes pass, finding no sign of Tamika. You begin to worry that something might have happened to her. Suddenly you hear rustling coming from the nearby bushes. It's not the stray cat kind of rustling either. Tamika? The rustling stops. Only for a second. Suddenly, the bushes part and Raoul walks out, desperately trying to look confident.
You wish. Listen, I want to have a word before Tam gets here. She seems to like you for whatever strange reason, but the way I see it, you're a nuisance at best. At worst, you're a threat.
Just give it some time. You'll warm up to me yet.
The whole suave asshole routine might work on your dipshit cami friends, but I'm not impressed. Tamika is my sister, in every sense of the word that counts. Anything happens to her, might never even remotely your fault. I'm coming after you. That clear?
Tamika seems pretty capable. Don't think she needs you're babysitting her.
Oh, she's plenty capable. Given the opportunity, she'll rip your guts out if you cross her. What I'm saying is, if anything happens to Tamika, I'm holding you accountable.
All of a sudden, the sound of footsteps reaches your ear. It's just faint enough not to be ostentatious, but loud enough to hear. You can tell that whoever's approaching wants to make their presence known. Both you and Raoul turn just in time to see Tamika emerge from behind an old sycamore tree. It's hard to tell just how long she's been listening in on your conversation. In any case, she walks up and speaks, addressing no one in particular.
Did I miss anything?
Your brother is worried about you. He seems to think I'm a bad influence. In an instant, her voice goes from mockingly sweet to stern and unyielding. Your next words sound like a challenge.
Is that true, Raoul?
You think I can't take care of myself?
God damn it, Tam. It's not what this is about. You know it.
I know, big brother. You meant well. You always mean well.
Screw it. Why do I even bother?
And with that, Raoul takes his leave. Tamika waits in silence, just long enough to make sure he can no longer hear her, and addresses you. I have a favor to ask.
Sure, anything.
She raises an eyebrow.
Anything? Careful, I might keep you to that.
I meant it. I meant what I said. The look of genuine surprise washes over her face. She blinks, as if trying to revert to her default resting bitch face setting.
I have an errand to run. I was hoping you'd come with me. There's a place east of here. It's a short walk. We should be back in about 2, maybe 3 hours.
"3 hours? Call that a short walk?"
Sorry.
I'm used to much longer distances than that. Forgotten that everyone is.
You think you can handle it?
You're being awfully mysterious. Can you just tell me what this is about?
It's a private matter. I'll explain later. It's nothing shady, I promise.
And so, you head toward the parking lot, accompanied by Tamika, and a lot of unanswered questions. Following Tamika's directions, you finally arrive at the Evergreen Cemetery, one of the oldest burying grounds in Brooklyn. You enter through the southwestern gate and follow your companion through the sea of tombstones. It's a nice enough place as far as graveyards go, much less homogenized than the usual flat field littered with identical markers. Tamika confidently presses on, swerving and weaving along a pre-programmed path. It's clear that she's been here more than a few times. Finally, she makes a sharp left and takes a few more steps down a gravel walkway, coming to a sudden stop in front of a modest headstone. The inscription reads, Lucas Santiago, beloved sister and daughter, born 1991, taken from us too soon. With her eyes fixed on the gravesite, she lets out an absent-minded utterance.
I need a moment, not long. 5 minutes at the most.
You look around in search of a good spot to wait for her and pass the time. At the far end of a nearby lawn, you notice a lone bench situated under a weeping willow. Suddenly, you hear voices, distant but slowly approaching. Judging by the tone and timbre, you're guessing it's a couple of teenagers out to get their late-night kicks among the dearly departed. Might be a good chance to feed. Then again, you could just pass the time walking around the area. See, quite nice, in a dark and somber kind of way.
Take your time. I'll go grab myself a drink. Just do it quietly. I don't want any trouble, not here.
You leave Tamika alone and follow the voices. Soon enough, you come upon a couple in their late teens. Judging by the thick eyeliner in their clothes, consisting mostly of black leather and lace, you'd venture a guess that they'd love nothing more than to meet an actual vampire. You're happy to oblige as you emerge from the shadows. You can feel your all intensify. The boy and the girl watch you, completely awestruck, waiting for you to approach. The slightest gesture is enough to shoo the boy away. He sits on a nearby bench and watches, completely enamored, as your lips press against the girl's neck. It's a weird sensation to feel actual, honest-to-God pride in a victim's blood, but here you are. She's glad to have been chosen in this way. You decide there's no good reason to discriminate, and also take a sip from the guy. His BO is pretty terrible, but the taste of his blood isn't half bad. Hoping the teens' post-kiss days will make your face just an impression in their memory, you leave them on the bench, just as they let their excited hormones run wild and start making out furiously. You half expect Kadir to materialize sword in hand to deal with these loose ends, or with you for leaving them to roam like you did. You'll need to be more careful in the future. Finally, you get back to the tree and find Tamika sitting on the bench. Without a word, you sit next to her. You look over to her, doing your best not to stare. She looks down, crossing her arms and putting her hands on her shoulders. In an instant, the ferocious savage disappears, replaced by a vulnerable young woman.
I think I'm done. You feel like sharing?
No,
but I owe you an explanation.
She looks away. You can tell she's struggling to open up to you, so you remain silent, trying not to make her uncomfortable.
I was embraced not far from here, in this cemetery,
A fitting spot, I suppose. It was close to a decade ago. I'd been on the road for a couple of years at that point, hitchhiking from one town to another. New York was supposed to be just another stop. And then I met Jezebel. She was strong, smart, independent. She seemed like someone I could trust, someone I could get close to. She never made me feel inadequate or ashamed. She could never hold her own in a fistfight, too. Funny thing, though, she only wanted to meet during nighttime. I didn't think anything of it. Even came up with excuses for her. Busy, eccentric, whatever worked. Until one night, she sank her teeth into my neck. You keep using the past tense. I take it she's no longer around. She's not dead. That's what you're asking. At least, not that I know of. She left soon after turning me. I think the conclave of Prague really shook her up. Wait, conclave of what? Prague. It's a city in Central Europe. It was supposed to be neutral ground, a good place to discuss politics and strategy. It ended up almost turning into a civil war. Next thing you know, anarchs were expunged from the Camarilla. All they had done for our kind, the blood they spilled, it didn't amount to a thing. I can't blame Jezebel for feeling betrayed, but yeah, even though I still had Raoul and Luca, I was still furious and terrified. Luca died after a few years later. Operation Lights Out, they called it. It was coordinated assault by the Second Inquisition, a genocide by any other name. Her family got together, bought up a plot, buried an empty casket. I guess they wanted some closure. Can't fault them for that. Even though she's not really here, I like to come and visit from time to time. Reminds me of who I am. Keeps me in check. Keeps the beast away. Also, this place being the place of my embrace, you have to appreciate the level of irony. She straightens up and looks at you as if something just occurred to her. Sorry, I don't know what came over me. One minute I'm all grunts and stares, the next I'm giving you my biography. Guess I'm just tired, being scared, alone. You don't have to be alone. I used to think so. Those were simpler times. At this point, I'm just looking for something to believe in. Someone I could give a damn about. For all their faults, the Anarchs sure seem like a freedom-loving bunch. She smiles knowingly. You and Raoul should get together. You sound just like him. Yeah, the Anarchs talk a lot about freedom, but that's where they run out of ideas. When push comes to shove, they're too busy fighting one another to actually get shit done. You open your mouth, but before you can make a sound, Tamika motions at you to keep quiet. She lifts her head and sniffs at the air. Her ears perk up and her eyes widen. Suddenly, she pushes you with all her strength, sending you flying off the bench. Before you even hit the ground, an immense shape flies into view and smashes down into the bench, splintering it into pieces. With the blood surging through your veins, you pounce onto your feet. You look at the mass of fur and muscles that just nearly pulverized you. The creature rears its head and gives you a deranged stare. It then turns to Tamika. She seems utterly terrified, frozen in place as if she literally just saw a ghost. You notice the creature shift its weight, and as if preparing to pounce. Feeling as if your muscles have turned to steel, you ram the creature before it can throw itself at Tamika. The beast flies through the air and smashes its back against a tree. In a matter of seconds, however, it gets back to its feet. Your attack might have surprised it, but it clearly didn't do any real damage. The creature then turns toward you. For a second or two, it moves its mouth awkwardly, as if trying to remember how to form words.
Stay out my ground.
The creature runs off toward a nearby clearing, when all of a sudden a gunshot sends it tumbling onto the ground. A group of well-armed men in body armor emerge from the shadows in an orderly formation and move in closer around the creature. Not sure what to make of what's happening, you figure it's best to get out of sight. As you start backing away to the nearby bushes, you notice Tamika following your lead. From the relative safety of the thick foliage, you watch in silence as the group of armed men subdue the creature using steel nets and cattle prods. In the corner of your eye, you catch Tamika looking away, as if she finds this whole spectacle somehow distasteful. She speaks under her breath, her voice shaking. "Can we get out of here?" You see no reason to object. The walk back turns out to be a quiet and somber experience. You both walk in silence, the city a blur of lights and cars careening by. You look over to Tamika. She seems lost in her thoughts. Finally, you decide to break the silence. Do you have any idea who those guys were? They looked like they knew what they were doing. They did. They spend their whole lives either training or hunting our kind. They're the Second Inquisition. It's been a while since I saw them operating in New York. I would never expect them to go after the Scarred One. Hell, until today, I wasn't even sure he existed. The Scarred One? That's the only name he's known by. He's a cautionary tale for young Gangrel. He's what happens when you let the beast take over. I always figured him to be more of a metaphor. Seeing him in real life, it's like if a Christian just happened to run into Judas Iscariot one day, and seeing him hunted down by this SI. I don't know what to think. I don't even know where to start thinking. Deciding to give her some space, you spend the rest of the walk in silence. Soon enough, the familiar tree line of Prospect Park comes into view. You stop by the entrance nearest to Tamika's haven. She keeps walking without so much as a word or glance in your direction. She stops after several paces and turns back toward you. "I'm sorry. Thank you for coming with me, but now I have a lot of shit to figure out. Once I do, I'll let you know." And with that, she disappears amongst the trees. Seeing no point in sticking around, you take your leave. Recently, you're feeling as if somebody keeps tailing you. Time to confirm your suspicions. Someone is following you around. Has been for a few nights. Maybe longer. That can't be a good thing. The only question is what to do about it. You venture out onto the street, with the goal of letting your stalker know you're aware of being followed. It's time to stop this ridiculous charade. It's raining outside, and as you step out onto the street in front of your haven, you wonder whether that'll help you. Will you be able to see the footprints of your stalker in puddles on the ground? Not sure where to start, you slip a few bills to a homeless man and chat up the guy who runs the local bodega. Both of them talk your ear off about strange characters hanging around, but none of their stories seem right to you. Walking the streets, you're convinced by turns that everyone you see is an enemy agent out to get you, and that your stalker has decided to take the night off. Frustrated, after a couple of hours of useless searching, you cross the road without looking where you're going. A courier on a motorbike zooms towards you and has no time to brake or swerve as you suddenly step in front of him. For a split second, your eyes meet those of the man on the bike, and you both know you'll collide. You'll get hurt. Something hits you, pushing you forward. You tumble, flying to the sidewalk as the courier zooms past. You feel a weight on your back, catch a glimpse of something, a person. Female, you think. Then she disappears. You can spend a couple more hours trying to find the woman who's been stalking you, but in your shriveled undead heart, you know it to be futile. She's gone. Kadir al-Ismai, the sheriff of New York City, is knocking at the door to your haven. The sight comes as more than a little shocking. If he had had business with you, you'd expect either to see him already inside, or never see him coming at all. Yet there he is, on the other side of the people, patiently and politely waiting for you to let him in. You carefully unlock the door and face him in silence.
Evening. May I come in?
You simply stare at him. Your lack of answer doesn't faze him, and your lack of resistance as he starts walking inside has obviously been interpreted as a permission. Once inside, he starts looking around as you cautiously stay by the door.
Haven't really had time to make this place your own yet, have you? It feels like Langley's apartment through and through. A secluded study where nobody studies anything. Look at the bookshelves. Books on this shelf, obviously meant to impress guests, not to be read. They reveal nothing about their owner aside from the aching desire to be taken seriously as an intellectual.
He picks one of them up and smirks before putting it away.
The phenomenology of spirit, next to all this garbage of poetry. We can make a bet. She's read more than 20 pages. I owe you $50 and a gallon of blood. The kind of place that self-professes hermits entombed themselves to suffer. Considering how much you have to run around these nights, you probably only use it to shelter from the sun and rest, right?
Even though he's obviously making the effort to come off as non-threatening, it's impossible to forget the first impression he made. You still see him as a fierce predator, trying hard not to expose his true colors. You sense a familiar fight-or-flight response as you struggle to find a diplomatic answer to his last question. If Kadir is bothered by your silence, he doesn't let it show. He keeps walking around, toying with whatever catches his eye. Eventually, he speaks up again.
Watch any baseball lately? If I had to guess, you strike me as a Red Sox fan.
Now he's inviting you to talk in a more direct manner. You attempt to overcome your physical reaction to him and to reply as casually as you can. Well, your mind keeps going back to that night when everything has changed forever. Waking up in hell with a body next to you, spending a night in that underground sweatbox, unsure of what will happen next. That endless car ride.
3 strikes.
A bloodthirsty crowd.
That blade.
A rebirth. A baptism by fire. A frightening executioner who made sure the flames scarred your spirit. As you look into his face, you realize he's read the emotions from yours.
Not in the mood to exchange pleasantries, huh?
There's no animosity in his voice. He's just stating a fact.
Let me get straight to the point, then.
He momentarily stops caring about his surroundings, turning all his attention to you, and demanding the entirety of your attention in return.
You see, there's something I've realized over the years. In large part, I may have been hired just to look menacing with a sword. But my job is all about seeing through bonds and relationships. The Camarilla would be safe as long as its members adhered to certain social contracts, making their dealings and affinities plain for everyone to see. But that, obviously, remains a pipe dream. This is a community of born conspirators, overly ambitious gangsters and politicians, monsters in denial, all sorts of tragically broken individuals. They are driven by desires that make them incompatible with the Masquerade, incompatible with prolonged survival of the Camarilla, incompatible with the methods I use to operate. And so, I am doomed to be like a cop, constantly insulted behind my back, maybe for good reason, but immediately called for when help. Someone loses their tableware. Or like an Agatha Christie protagonist, outwardly assisted by everyone, but constantly lied to about everyone's past and motivations. Even in my failure to solve the mystery might be the end of us all. He tries to sound like he's peacefully resigned to his fate, but it's easy to detect a tinge of regret in his voice. A voice belonging to someone who once had bigger ambitions than this. What broke him? So you see, for this detective, the why done it is far more important than the who done it or how done it. When you understand all the players and the mutual obligations, you easily understand every crime. But of course, the kindred know it, so they devise ways to make my job much harder, just like conspiracies between two unrelated actors that depend on scratching each other's backs for mutual security. Or they enforce a blood bond to make someone unexpected their thrall, a boss serving their employee, a rebel serving a tyrant, just because one is regularly being forced to drink another's blood. What has Sophie seen in you? Why does the prince keep asking me about your actions? How come you're being pushed to build your own coterie so fast? You are surrounded by unclear motivations, which you yourself don't understand. That unnerves me. Should unnerve you as well.
This monologue has gone on for long enough.
Why are you here? What is it about?
Finally, you manage to raise your voice. Kadir notices the effort and smiles softly.
So you haven't gone mute since the last time I saw you. Good. Well, I'm here for a selfish reason. I need to develop a rapport with you to better fulfill my obligations. The last time we met, I couldn't see you as my equal. Now that you've been accepted into the Camarilla, what choice do I have? I'd understand if you didn't want to see my face again, but I'm one of the faces of New York City community, and as long as you're part of it, it's going to be impossible to avoid me. Especially when I have business with you, and I do. As you might have guessed by now, One of my tasks is uncovering and understanding your bonds, and one of them might endanger our community.
Well, that's not menacing at all. Who is he talking about?
Is this about Sophie?
Peter shakes his head.
Sophie's fine. She's plotting something big. I know it, and she knows it. She knows I know it, but she's treading carefully, as she should. No, I'm not a major player.
He produces a file from underneath his coat and passes it to you.
This is our troublemaker.
You open the file and see some printed photos. You freeze up as you recognize the face and are overwhelmed by a flood of repressed memories. Jessica Lowell, the woman who made the last few years of your life heaven, the last few weeks of living hell. Since she took pretty much everyone you knew with her after the split, you thought the transition to this life would be painless. No baggage at all. Have you thought wrong? You look up Kadir. You look up at Kadir, expecting answers.
There are some unfortunate rumors that you committed suicide after a messy breakup. So, apparently, Miss Jessica here is desperately mobilizing everyone she knows to look for you. Turns out she contacted a lot of people who might recognize you, including some law enforcement agencies. The risk of endangering us is relatively low, but far from non-existent, which means she must be stopped.
Must be stopped. Sounds threatening. You dread thinking what he's planning.
I'll arrange for you two to meet tomorrow so that you can straighten the situation out and say goodbye to the life you've forsaken.
He'll arrange. What? Your eyes must look like saucers right now.
Usually these matters are left to my discretion, and I can't think of an easier solution. The lost sheep reappears, takes care of unfinished business, and disappears, never to be seen again. Nobody cares. It's simple, it's clean. No contrived schemes, no unnecessary victims. And it gives me an opportunity to learn more about you as I observe. When neonates interact with kine, they used to hold dear. Their true natures are laid bare for everyone to see.
Of course he's invested in being kind to you. Or he's making clear to him he's making clear his self-serving intentions so that you don't start figuring them out yourself.
Any objections?
Any alternatives are probably worse. You shake your head.
Very well. I'll arrange a meeting and drive you there tomorrow. Better come up with a load of bull that's easy to swallow.
He disappears from the apartment, leaving you as confused as the last time he closed the door on you. God damn it. You need to think it through. For a long time, you just sit in your haven, lost in your thoughts, remembering how you once thought your world had ended with her leaving. Whining, sure, but seemed like it was prescient whining. Last time you failed to resolve the situation with your stalker. You have to get a handle on that one way or another. You're in your haven when the intercom rings. Answering cautiously, you hear an older male voice.
Hello. I'm calling because a friend asked me to come by, offer you my services.
Who's this friend?
Better not talk about that on the intercom. Secrets are secrets.
The man sounds strangely excited, breathing hard.
Is this a sex thing? No, I mean, not in that way. I know you're one of them. Please, it's all right. I don't mind. You can drink with me if you understand what I mean.
A man you've never seen before is paying a visit to an apartment not many people know of, offering for you to feed from him.
I'm getting creeped out. I'm so sorry. Don't worry. I mean no harm.
Silence. A minute passes, and you hear a knock on the door to your haven. You cautiously open the door. The stranger looks at you sheepishly. He's in his 30s, dressed in a clean business suit. He looks moderately successful. Someone you could meet at an investment bank.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to intrude, so that's why I called from downstairs.
You know what? I was hungry anyway. The man looks comically satisfied as you usher him into your haven. He barely waits for you to close the door before he loosens the collar of his shirt, closes his eyes, and bares his neck in quivering expectation. You look at the man, taken aback by such forwardness. Figuring that you didn't invite the man here for a chat, you lean closer, take him by the shoulders, and sink your fangs into him. This is not an unpleasant way to feed. You reflect as the blood flows into your mouth. The blood comes to your door of his own volition. The man moans as you drink from him, lost in the ecstasy of the kiss. It feels a little unsettling, unseemly, but it would be churlish to begrudge him of his pleasures. Taking care not to drink too much, you let go of the man after licking his wounds closed. Suddenly you're startled by a surprising sight. A woman, not very old, strangely dressed, is looking at you intently, only an arm's length away. Before you can react, the mysterious woman opens your front door and vanishes from sight, leaving you to wonder whether you really saw her at all. As you stare, confused, the man you drank from slips out of your haven into the hallway, staggering a little from the effects of the kiss. You close your door, wondering what that was all about. At least you got to feed, if nothing else. Knock, knock. You'd asked who's there, but you don't know if the sheriff of New York City would play along. When you open the door, you see him toying with the car keys he's holding in his hand.
Ready to go, fledgling?
You don't feel like it, but you give him a nod nevertheless.
Excellent. Stay close.
He leads you down the vehicle he's parked nearby. Once again, he takes the wheel, literally and figuratively. Everything inside is just the way you remember it, down to the rearview mirror reflecting the intense stare of your guide. However, the trip itself feels notably different. The last time Kadir drove you around, he was forcibly dragging you away from your old life. This time, he's pulling you back into it. All these things you wanted to say to Jessica keep running through your head.
Let me tell you how it's going to go. As I said, I've arranged a meeting between you and your kin. It's going to take place somewhere you should know very well. I'll watch over you two from a safe distance to make sure you adhere to the rules. You should know those very well, but I'll reiterate just so you can't ever say I didn't warn you. Don't do anything that would violate the Masquerade. Don't establish secret routes of contact. I will know. Do treat it as the last time you two will meet. Take this chance to wrap everything up. Here's your story. You're fine, you've found yourself at a crossroads, decided to radically change your life and move out of the city. The subway is unbearable, the rent is too high, they've heard it all. You're ready to leave New York for good when you've heard those absurd rumors about taking your own life. So you decided to set the record straight. He gives you a knowing look. And close the curtain on your relationship once and for all, on your terms.
The car makes a sudden turn.
I'll leave the finer details to you. Just be so kind and don't make me regret it.
You can sense he's going out of his way for you, but doesn't try to force you into gratitude by stating it plainly. If you know, you know. He'll see it if you're worthy of his aid.
We're here.
You take a look around and recognize your destination. He was right. It is a familiar place. It's that club. That one you met your future sire, in which you were trying to forget about Jess.
This is where you last saw poor Merrick. Who knows whatever might have happened to him? One Jessica Lowell is trying to find out. She's got a tip from an anonymous source, saying you might appear here tonight. You wouldn't want to disappoint the lady, would you? She's apparently quite distraught.
He turns the engine and relaxes comfortably in his seat. You silently leave the car and head straight for the club. The last time you were headed this way, you still had a pulse. Feels almost nostalgic. There's a party getting started, and some rookie DJ is trying to read the crowd. You begin to look for Jess. You wonder what the first thing you say to her should be. Yeah, that should work. The music is pulsing, and there are good vibes in the air. You spot a girl hurrying to the bathroom with a nosebleed. The smell is faint, but it gets you in the mood to have some fun. However, Kadir indicated that he's got a pair of eyes on you, around here somewhere. Better stick to the plan. Stupid idea pops into your head. You meet her and she says, "I want to be with you again." What would you do? What's done is done. Best not to dwell on it. By now, it feels like you've explored all the places Jess could have been. It's been frustrating. You grab the cheapest drink they have from the bar. A tall blonde girl in a stylish skirt smiles at you from behind the heart-shaped glasses. You smile back, but this is no time for the heart to guide the hand. You walk past her. Back to your duty. You mimic taking a sip of your drink. Good. You could have been having so much fun tonight. You could accidentally stumble into Jessica when you least expect it. She looks at you as if she's seen a ghost. You freeze up, trying to come up with something to say and failing. The last few years of your life flash before your eyes. Wait, what was the line you decided to open the conversation with? Before you remember, a powerful slap takes you out of your stupor. "You stupid motherfucker." Guess she gets the first line. You realize you spilled your drink all over your clothes. "I've been so worried. I'm so fucking worried. Called everyone I knew looking for you. You're just having fun clubbing? I thought it would be fun to drop all contact with everyone. Pretend something happened to you? What, you wanted to see my reaction?" She slaps you once again. You let some sort of dissociation set in. You just watch the situation as it unfolds. "I'll let everyone know you're okay. But don't you ever show yourself in front of me again." She turns her back on you and disappears into the crowd, walking towards the exit. You look around. You notice the heart-shaped glasses girl chuckling in the distance. You're no longer in the mood to party. Guess you'll follow Jessica's lead and leave. Better not keep the sheriff waiting. Well, at the very least you can say this. She still cares. That's nice. Back in Kadir's car, once you close the door, he instantly puts his foot on the gas pedal.
"Walking off the pitch with no regrets. Said everything you had to say?"
You speak up without thinking. "Yeah. She said she'll call off the search." Getting her to accept that was over this Getting to accept that it was over took some harsh words, but deep down, I think she knew it was time to say farewell once and for all. She's a little shaken up, but she'll live. You spot a playful spark in Kadir's eyes.
You took care of it like a man, did you? Very good. The people we knew in life have this tendency to briefly reappear in our unlives. One night, let's say, 20 years from now, she might spot you on the street. You won't have aged a day from now, and even though she'll tell herself that can't be you, she'll be jealous. And if you look happy, she will feel regret over what you could have been. So for the sake of the night your path cross again, I hope you'll search for your own happiness.
The car speeds up to cross an intersection before the light turns red. You give Kadir a good, hard look.
You've done a good job setting all this up.
He chuckles, visibly proud.
If I couldn't handle something this easy, I wouldn't be holding my position, but...
He takes a serious, slightly sorrowful expression.
Don't suck up to me, kid. Mr. Bad Guy is still here, and without a doubt he will go back to decapitating suckers like you any time now.
The car starts slowing down.
We're here.
You look out the window and see your haven.
Take care. I'll see you around. Just pray I don't have to see you too often.
You leave the car and start walking to your haven. Thinking about Kadir, can't stay you're fond of him. What with the welcome he gave you and all, but after tonight, you can't say you aren't either. You're gonna need some more time to understand him, that's for sure. A tapping on the window, a small grayish bird flying off. A small piece of paper left on the windowsill. Prospect Park, ASAP. Tam. As you open the blinds, you're able to spot a small grayish bird flying off into the night. Looking down, you notice a small piece of paper on the windowsill. Prospect Park, ASAP. Damn. Third time's the charm. You think it's yours. You think to yourself, oh, as you once again cross the gate of Prospect Park and head for Tamika's haven. To your surprise, you find her out in the open, sitting on the lawn, surrounded by a host of woodland creatures, birds, and squirrels mostly. The critters each patiently await their turn, as she flicks seeds at them. Looks almost whimsical in a twisted sort of way.
Hell of a week, huh? How are you holding up? Well enough, all things considered.
She scatters the remaining seeds onto the grass and hops to her feet.
I've been doing some digging. The Inquisition has a safe house up in Manhattan. I think that's where they've been keeping him. Scarred one, I mean. I want to pay them a visit. Kill that thing as many of those SI bastards as I can along the way.
Attacking a government safe house. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't that be considered a breach of the Masquerade?
Yeah, and that's the least of our worries. Throwing a legion of armed goons standing in our way and an all-powerful vampires they cherry on top. Look, I'm not stupid. I know it's risky as hell, and I'm well aware I might not be coming back. Still, it's something I have to do, with or without your help. Just out of curiosity, does Raoul know about this master plan of yours? He does now.
He emerges from the shadows as a mere few feet away from you. Son of a gun finally managed to sneak up on you. Tamika eyeballs him as he gets closer. You've seen that look before. She's clearly asserting her position, but this time, it comes off as a formality rather than an actual challenge.
How long have you been there, Raoul? Long enough. I'm still not buying the whole scarred one bullcrap, but taking a bite out of the Inquisition's collective ass is just too good to pass up. I want in.
Who are you going to believe if you're not your sister? Why would she lie to you?
I never said she was lying. More like exaggerating just enough to keep me away from the action. 'Cause, you know, little old me couldn't possibly look after himself. Now, can we move this along? I'm itching to kill me some SI fox.
Tamika, you got an opinion?
I guess I know who the alpha is around here.
He should come with us. He's got the right to be there, to see the scarred one with his own eyes. Plus, my brother can be a pain in the ass, but is one hell of a fighter.
There you go. Tam's seal of approval.
It's settled then. Let's go.
Fucking finally.
And with that, you leave the relative safety of Prospect Park, steeling yourself for things to come. As you get closer to your destination, you get the sneaking suspicion that Tamika has been pulling your leg. Following her lead, you take a turn for Broadway into Fort Tryon Park. Doesn't seem to make sense. You think to yourself, there's only one spot between here and Hudson River. But it can't be. Can it? Sure enough. As the stone facade of the cloisters come into view, Tamika motions at you to keep out of sight. How the hell is this well-known tourist trap a hideout for the Second Inquisition? The cloisters? Seriously? That's the Inquisition's safe house.
Talk about hiding in plain sight, huh?
This place used to be a lot of things. Now it serves as a staging ground for the Inquisition. My sources are to be trusted, and they usually are. They are brought here for what they call processing. Doubt they'll keep him here for long. We want to get him. It's over now or never. As if on cue, a group of armed guards walks out of the museum, pushing a gurney with a large steel container on top of it. As they wheel it out into the open, a truck approaches. The operatives start preparing to load the crate onto the vehicle. You scan the area, trying to take a head count. Tamika beats you to it. I count at least 7, probably more inside. We should do this quietly and take them out one by one.
Raoul frowns. I say we go in guns blazing, figuratively speaking. If there's more inside, let them come. The more the merrier.
Tamika is right. We should go in quietly. Take them out one by one. Tamika nods in silence.
Fine. Let's do this already, before you two bore me to final death.
You split up, aiming to cover as much ground as possible, sticking to the shadows. You advance, keeping track of one another's progress. You hardly even notice as Tamika takes out the first guard, not a peep out of him. Trying to keep up, Raoul kills the one to your left. He's sloppy, takes his sweet-ass time bleeding the guy out. With his dying breath, the man lets out a yelp, drawing the attention of one of his comrades. With the guard fast approaching, you ponder your options. As the guard walks by, you leap out of the shadows and put him into a crushing headlock. Opting for a non-lethal approach, you quickly choke the guy out. Just as you're about to move on, Raoul jumps in and plunges his claws into the man's chest. He then turns towards you and mutters a silent reprimand.
No witnesses.
3 down. 4 to go. You keep a steady pace, moving around the courtyard, picking up guards one by one. Tamika does her part. 3 to go. Raoul gets messy again. At least this time he's quiet. With only 2 of them left. You pick one for yourself and gesture at one of your fellow ferals to take care of the others. Tamika's quieter, but Raoul's closer. Which one will you choose? You wave your hand at Tam, pointing at her final target. She nods and starts making her way towards him. Suddenly, by virtue of sheer luck, he turns around just as she is about to pounce. His scream is quickly muffled, but still loud enough for the very last guard to hear. As all 3 of you approach him, the dire reality of the situation hits him like a ton of bricks. Paralyzed with fear, he keeps shifting his aim from you to Tamika to Raoul. He is severely fucked and he knows it, and since you're standing close to him, you might as well do the honors. You walk over to the quivering mess that mere minutes ago thought himself the toughest of the tough. Before he can react, you slap the gun out of his hands, lean in, and smile. Hi. Half a second later, your fangs are already halfway into his windpipe. The blood tastes sour, with a hint of cowardice and regret. You could have gone out with a bang, chose to go out with a gurgle. Oh well. When the Second Inquisition operatives taken care of, you turn your attention to the container sitting in the middle of the courtyard. Using your combined strength, you make quick work of the steel door. As you walk in, the moonlight from behind you illuminates a twisted figure huddled on the floor. It's hard to believe that the thing lying before you, beaten and tortured within an inch of its unlife, is the same creature you fought back at the cemetery.
What the fuck is that thing?
It's what your sister warned you about, what you refused to believe. His lips move silently, as if searching for the right words. He looks to you, then turns to his sister, as if waiting for a sign. For a moment, Tamika just stands there. She looks down at the scarred one, the once fearful boogeyman whose very mention could strike terror in the hearts of her tribe, now reduced to a whimpering pile of flesh. Finally, she turns to you with a childish innocence mixed with confusion, and she looks back at the scarred one. You can tell she's lost.
Tam, the hell are you waiting for? Let's kill this thing and get it out of here.
This is your choice. Can't make it for you. She turns to you with a look of pride mixed with desperation.
I'm not asking you to. Do it, Tam. You know he deserves it. Hell, looks like you'll be doing him a favor.
Do whatever you will, just be ready to live with the consequences. Suddenly, the very air around you seems to thicken. You look over to Tamika. She's not quivering anymore. She walks up to the scarred one. The pitiful creature presses itself into the corner in a desperate and futile attempt to crawl away. Without a word, she grabs the creature by the ears, sinking her claws into the sides of his head. She looks him dead in the eye. Her voice is surprisingly warm, also almost soothing.
You can rest now, brother.
In one fluid motion, she twists his neck off his shoulders. The snapping sound is both sickening and satisfying. The empty husk of the once fearful beast falls to the floor like a slab of meat.
Jesus, Tam, that was... What the hell was that?
Hopefully some closure. Standing outside the sealed container, the 3 of you take a moment to gather your thoughts. You look at one another, at the blood staining your hands, clothes, and faces. In the pale moonlight, it appears black and shiny, like a fresh ink stain on a fresh sheet of paper. Without another word, you head back toward the city lights. The journey back takes longer than it did the other day in the other direction. With bits and pieces of the Second Inquisition still stuck to your clothes, you decide to play it safe by sticking to the alleys and cutting through the dark corners of the city. Tamika stays several steps ahead. Both you and Raoul are quite content to follow her lead. You can tell that these last few nights have taken a toll on her, but not necessarily in a bad way. She seems stronger somehow, confident, more in tune with herself. Soon, the awkward silence proves unbearable, even that you're willing to risk making some small talk with Raoul. You know, I'm still not sure I understand what happened back there.
You wouldn't. It's not something one of your lineage could understand. Our lineage, we have a special relationship with the beast. We could either let it control us or become attuned to it. It's a constant struggle, marked with difficult choices. I think Tam just made one of them.
Pondering what you've heard, the rest of the trip barely registers. To your surprise, you suddenly find yourself back at Prospect. Tamika keeps walking. She strides through the park gate like a queen of old, returning after a victorious conquest. You want to call out to her, but Raoul stops you with a gesture.
Not yet. Give her some time to process all this shit. She'll let you know when she's ready. And hey, you did alright. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're still an asshole. But, yeah. Thanks.
He smiles at you, wonders never cease.
See you around.
And with that, he follows in his sister's footsteps. A weird smile creeps onto your face as you meld into the New York night. Immediately after you enter the park, you can tell that something is wrong. An odd silence hangs in the air, like the silence from a choking victim after the fight leaves them. It doesn't take you long to find Tamika. You see her in the distance, leaning against a tree. As you make your way towards her, she puts her finger to her lips. Only then do you notice the blood dripping from her side. You pick her up, letting her lean on you. She looks at you, her eyes wild with fear and rage.
They are here. The Inquisition. They found us. Raoul, he drew them away. Saved my ass. He's still out there. We need to go. We need to help him.
You're bleeding out. You're in no shape to mount a rescue.
Screw you.
A jolt of pain makes her almost bend in half.
I'm going.
All right. Stay behind me. Don't take any chances. She looks up at you, gnashing her teeth in pain. Yeah. Through sheer force of will, she manages to straighten herself up.
Let's fucking do this.
You head deeper into the park. Soon you stumble upon a set of innocuous barriers, service vehicles, black and yellow, caution tape, men in work suits that keep the civilians out of a certain area. It's not at all difficult for a creature of the night to avoid these. You'd almost think that their presence here is accidental. But once you spot black vans deeper in, you get a foreboding feeling. Tamika grabs your shoulder and squeezes. Hard.
Hold up.
There. You have to squint to see it. 2 SI scouts have taken tactical positions between the trees. There's no way in hell you'd have noticed them or hide in time if Tamika hadn't alerted you. Body armor, camo, night vision goggles, rifles, and semi-auto shotguns. Some equipment you can't even name. These guys mean business. There's no time. She's getting ready to just pounce on them. Consequences be damned. You need to think, and fast. Yelling at the top of your lungs, you rush at the men, forcing both of them to focus their fire on you. The first one falls before he's able to pull the trigger. The second one takes aim. Suddenly, you realize you might have bitten off more than you can chew. Reflexively, you squint, waiting for the bullets to tear through your flesh. To your surprise, no shots are fired. You open your eyes and see Tamika standing over your would-be assailant. She flicks her wrist, sprinkling the grass under her feet with the man's blood. Don't steal my kills. All things considered, she seems to be doing all right. You keep on moving. Tamika gestures at the nearest patch of trees. Stick to the shadows. Take them, one at a time. Sound advice. You take it to heart as you move on towards Tamika's haven. It doesn't take long for you to run across more of them. 3 operatives in full riot gear are running down a park alley, sweeping the area with barrel-mounted flashlights. Keeping very still and very quiet, you wait for them to approach. Tamika watches you from the bushes nearby, clearly waiting to follow your lead. Careful not to overplay your hand, you grab the first hunter as he's walking past and pull him into the bushes. Quietly, taking your time, you put pressure on his neck. A grisly snap lets you know the deed is done. Jumping right back into the action, you see that Tamika has already taken care of one of the remaining 2. The other one, however, has already spotted her. It's not looking good. You run at him, full speed. Just as he's about to open fire, you slam the gun out of his hand. A quick follow-up turns him into a blood sprinkler. You give Tamika an impish smile. She actually looks impressed. Keep it up. No time to savor your victory. A savage yell rings out from across the tree line. You know that voice. Raoul! Tamika throws herself towards where it came from. It's almost unbelievable how fast she moves considering the state she's in. You're barely able to keep up. Mere seconds later, you find yourselves under the cover of rose bushes, giving you a clear view of a nearby clearing. Off in the distance, you spot a group of gunmen converging. Slowly but surely, the circle of hunters closes in on a lone figure struggling on the ground. The figure lets out a pained roar. Looking closely, you realize it's Raoul, caught in the same steel net you saw used against the scarred one. He struggles frantically, trying to break free. With each passing second, step by step, the operatives close in around him. Driven by instinct, Tamika jerks forward to save her brother. She stops herself at the last moment, as if reminded of your presence. Okay, how do we do this? We go in fast and fierce. No messing around. Take him out as quickly as you can. She nods in approval. Sounds good. You move in like a 2-person SWAT team, staying low to the ground before you finally make your first move. The first 2 hunters meet their death. Unfortunately, it's enough for the others to notice your presence. So much for the element of surprise. As 2 men turn towards you, with their fingers already on the trigger, another 2 approach you, stabbing at the air with their cattle prods. Prioritizing long-range attackers, you make quick work of them, slashing both their throats before they can fire. Meanwhile, Tamika does her share, and she swiftly avoids the cattle prods and moves in for the kill. 4 bodies hit the ground, 2 vampires still standing. You both turn towards the last remaining foe, Driven by sheer desperation, the sole surviving soldier stands over Raoul and aims his semi-automatic shotgun at his head. Tamika growls. You gesture at her to stand down. There is no room for mistakes here. A faint whisper escapes your lips to make its way to Tamika's ears. On my mark. Be ready. With shaking hands, the gunman looks at you. Then Tamika, as if warning you not to come any closer. This is mostly for show. He's fucked, and he knows it. You bide your time, waiting for the right moment to signal to Tamika. Finally, you see an opening, a split second of hesitation. Before you can make a move, Raoul springs up, grabbing the man's gun. As they struggle, you and Tamika lunge towards the gunman. A shot rings out. Raoul's body collapses under the weight of the steel net. His head, a gaping hole. The operative looks at you, startled and confused. His eyes widen, seeing Tamika fly towards him. Death incarnate. The man's screams echo across the park. She doesn't stop. Not when his intestines are spread on the grass. Not when his eyes turn to bloody holes. Not when his face turns to mush. Only when the screaming stops. Only when it is certain he has met his cruel end. Only then does she stop. You watch in silence. She walks over to what's left of her brother. Falling to her knees, Tamika lets out a yell unlike any you've heard. It's as if she's been possessed by some wailing spirit, a banshee screaming out into the sky. Her scream echoes across the clearing until finally it all goes quiet. With tears streaming down her face, she looks up at you. It's my fault. I put us in their sights. If it wasn't for me, he'd still... Clenching her fist, she pounds the ground in frustration. Fuck! Come on, we need to get out of here. This isn't over yet. More will be coming. She gets up. A violent shiver runs through her entire body, as if she is literally trying to shrug off her despair. When she looks at you again, she seems far more clear-headed. Right. Let's get out of here. Hastily, yet carefully, you make your way out of the park. You don't stop until you reach a nearby alleyway. There, in the relative safety of the surrounding darkness, you take a moment to rest. Leaning against the wall, Tamika presses her hand on her wound. Fighting off the pain, she looks up at you. Let's split up. Attention. Hunters, spotters, on the rooftops. I'm not going anywhere. We need to get you patched up. I know. A guy. We'll be fine. Knowing when it's time to fold, you nod and head toward the far end of the alley. After several steps, you look back to see how Tamika's doing. You smile, noting her absence. Having managed past a couple blocks without incident, you thank your lucky stars and blend into the nightly New York City crowd. However, Tamika made it. Hopefully Tamika made it as well. Let's do this one. You haven't been to a church since you became a vampire, or kindred, as the euphemism goes. You've had to focus on concrete, practical things like survival and feeding. You've learned the essentials of the vampire experience, but you don't really have a clear idea of what it all means. The Cathedral of St. John the Divine is a New York landmark. You've been inside once before, when you were much younger. You marveled at its Gothic facade. Looking at it now from across the street, it feels ominous. The prospect of an anonymous invitation to a secret meeting is a worrying one, but the venue is well chosen. It's hard to imagine a violent attack in a place like this, with eyes everywhere. You enter the cathedral discreetly. You've quickly learned this is an essential skill for a vampire, how to move without anyone noticing you. The full force of the cathedral's architecture hits you as you walk between the pews. And if the architect meant to create feeling of being small in the face of God's glory, mission accomplished. Based on the note, you're assuming that whoever you met is someone somewhere in front. When you step closer to the high altar, it feels like something is dragging at your feet, as if the stone beneath you resisted your movement. It's been a long time since you prayed. You wonder whether the God listens to creatures like you. Fatalistically, you take a step, then another. You're not sure if your God is present in this cathedral, but perhaps it doesn't matter. What you feel is real enough. There's an old man sitting in the front. You see only the back of his head, bowed down in silent prayer. Your footsteps echo on the floor, and he turns to look at you. You can't take your eyes off him. He's tall, dignified, white hair balding, a few strands escaping to the sides. He's wearing glasses and simple clerical clothing. His eyes are warm and pale, too kind for someone like you. Something is wrong. You feel heavy, as if a giant hand was pressing you down. The skin on your face is burning. Perhaps unconsciously you expected something like this, as a vampire walking into a cathedral. Only it's not the building or God making you feel like you're burning alive. It's the man. The priest.
Welcome, my child.
The priest's tone is kind. The rising panic is telling you the kindness is not for the likes of you. The man is looking straight into your soul. You turn and run the way you came, stumbling out of the cathedral. You emerge outside, confused and scared. What was that? At least you escaped unharmed. You stand on the sidewalk, confused and scared. No enemies seem to be attacking you. The priest didn't follow you. The night air is wet with the smells of the city, the same as every night.
How did it feel?
You look at the man speaking to you. He's well dressed, a little archaic, dark-haired, handsome, like a character from an old movie. He smiles as if he knows something you don't. You glance around. There are people on the street. You don't appear to be in immediate danger.
Did you do this to me? No, absolutely not. Let me introduce myself. My name is Beniot Segal. We share many things in common, even if you don't know me.
Beniot offers his hand to you. Beniot's handshake is firm and dry. He looks at you intently, as if trying to find something in your eyes.
Would you mind sitting with me for a moment?
Beniot points to a park bench nearby, in darkness because of a broken street light. Wary, you decide to follow him. Only an enemy totally unconcerned with Masquerade would attack you here. Beniot sits down and you follow suit. For a moment, you both contemplate the cathedral in silence.
I know how it feels, what you just felt. I have experienced it myself many times.
For a moment, you consider how to respond. It's clear Beniot sent the invitation to come here and orchestrated this little setup. What's the point? Why did you get to the trouble of getting me here?
We share a connection, you and I. I'll explain it later, but right now, the important thing is that it's so much easier to show than to tell. I want you to meet Father Anthony, or see him, experience him. Did you wonder why it felt like that?
At first I thought it was because it was in a church, but then I realized it came from him, the priest.
I think you're right. It does come from him. It's his faith that makes you feel like that. He's safe in his belief, Well, you are one of the damned. You ever wonder what's the role of a vampire in God's creation?
You stop to think. Of course you've wondered what this is all about. Whether it's about God or nature, you don't really know what being a vampire means. That's the trouble with the Masquerade. A human faced with a human problem can go online and find something that helps. You can't. Masquerade means that everything there is to know about your condition is secret, hidden away. You're left relying on the unreliable opinions of people like Benia. Suddenly, Benia takes your hand and presses it against his chest. As he stares into your eyes, you feel his heart stop. My heart no longer beats, yet I move, I talk. Is that how God intended us to be? Whoa, I don't believe in the supernatural. This is a natural explanation for all this. We just don't know it. Maybe there is, I don't know either, but I know that Father Anthony's faith is real. Sometimes I'm skeptical too, but in Father Anthony's presence, I know faith is real. I know it because it hurts so much. But perhaps you have questions about faith and our kind. How do you know any of those stories are true?
I don't. How could I know? This is what faith is. You have to believe something. Good and evil, right and wrong, love and hate. I believe we are damned. I also believe there is always hope. Grace. Father Anthony's faith shows me the way. It's so easy for us to lose ourselves in a morass of occult speculation. Some of our kind revere Cain, others, Lilith. Many in the Camarilla place their faith in invisible guidance of the Methuselahs who are supposed to watch over us. Methuselah is a vampire who's existed for a millennium or more, an elder who no longer participates in kindred society. Methuselahs are rumored to hail from the 4th and 5th generation. Yet I wonder how much that really matters when compared to the character of a good man. I'll trust in the Bible more than these crazy vampire stories. We're very consistent. I know it's overwhelming. It was for me when I first met Father Anthony. I know there are others like him, whose faith shines like a beacon. Priests, old ladies, children. Anyone can have that conviction inside them. This is too much. You expect me to go along with all this insanity. Beniot nods patiently. Let's meet again in a few nights, here at the cathedral. We can talk more about your thoughts, after you've thought it through. You leave Beniot sitting in the shadows of the cathedral, contemplating what lies within. It would be easier to ignore his words without the reality of what you experienced. Father Anthony was holy. You know it to be true. But what does that mean? You come back to your haven after a long night out. Right before you open the door, you notice something strange. The sounds of television are coming from your apartment. Mad Men, you're not mistaken. You open the door and carefully peek in. A young, disheveled woman is curled up on your sofa. She has a blanket pulled on top of her and seems very comfortable. Next to her lies an obviously unconscious preppy woman. Oh, you're home.
The woman reaches for the remote and puts Mad Men on pause.
You weren't home when I started without you. You weren't home, so I started without you. You know,
Netflix and chill. Join me. The space on the sofa. I brought us a snack.
You enjoyed it last time.
The woman points lazily to the unconscious girl. Oh, I forgot. My name is Adelaide. Adelaide Davis. I like you a lot. help yourself and settle in. Adelaide makes space on the sofa as you sit down between her and the unconscious mortal. You lean to drink from the girl as Adelaide uses the remote to turn Mad Men back on. The girl moans sleepily as you drink from her, but doesn't wake. Her blood tastes pleasant and unhurried, a far cry from the adrenaline of blood you get by hunting a victim who knows you're coming. As you let the girl's wound close and sit back on the sofa, Adelaide lies down and rests her head on your lap. Isn't this nice? I've missed this. We could pretend to be human, for a while at least. You watch the show together, taking small sips from the human every now and then. You didn't know vampires could spend time like this. The door to your apartment opens. Your mind is elsewhere, and you react slowly. Sophie strides into your living room. She has a key to your haven, and never bothers to knock, of course. You're shacking up with Adelaide Davis, the scourge of Snug Harbor in the flesh. This is a new low for you, fledgling. I'm embarrassed for you, really. Perhaps I should not be surprised. It's not what it looks like. It looks like you're cuddling with trash. Adelaide leaves the room, making sure to give a wide berth to Sophie as possible. Sophie waits for the door to the apartment to close before she speaks. The Clan of the Moon. Did I not advise caution when dealing with them? As you watch, Sophie makes a phone call. 10 minutes later, 2 of her servants arrive to remove the unconscious girl sprawled on your sofa. You clearly need my help. It wouldn't happen tonight, but let me see if I can resolve your stalker problem for real. You're left to wonder what Sophie meant by that. She leaves your haven. You've had enough of Adelaide Davis. It's time to head to Elysium and confront her with Sophie by your side. Visiting Elysium with Sophie is always a humbling experience. She's connected, well-known, important. You're a nobody. You've always known this, of course, but it's especially apparent when you arrive with her. Everyone notices her, and she drinks it in like it's her birthright. This is Adelaide Davis. Let's go say hello. You spot the woman Sophie is referring to. Adelaide, your stalker, intense, disheveled, young-looking. A Malkavian, if you understood correctly. As you approach, Adelaide smiles at you with a darting look of distaste towards Sophie. Don't worry. I won't judge you. Don't judge people by the company they keep. That's sweet of you. Let me say this straight. You can't keep doing what you're doing. You have to leave my poor ward alone. Adelaide looks from Sophie to you and giggles. The sound must be rare in Elysium because it makes people glance toward you. I know she's making you do this. Don't worry. We'll be together again later. This game you play is too much for me. Let's go on a normal date next time. Sophie turns slowly to you, to look at you. Not as disapprovingly as you expected. Perhaps she thinks you're playing a social game, like kindred often do. Oh, I'm sorry. Adelaide looks serious, as if you forced her out of her comfort zone. I admit playing games is easier for me, but I appreciate it. Let's go on a date some night. Adelaide smiles at you shyly and walks away. Sophie waits a moment before speaking. I hope you know what you're doing. Let me know how it goes. I suppose it'll be a good laugh in these tedious times. You're fairly certain that you've accomplished your goal of getting Adelaide to stop harassing you with strange surprises. Whether she'll hold you to the date, only time will tell. You started to look at churches differently since you last encountered with Beniot. You're not sure what happened inside, but it was unavoidably real. You felt it. When Beniot mentioned that being in the presence of Father Anthony's faith would eventually kill someone like you, an undead being, you believed him. It doesn't seem to be very common, though. In New York, you pass thousands of people every night, and none of them have made you feel so afraid and insignificant. If you were to encounter someone like Father Anthony in the subway of a nightclub, you would know. There are many churches in the 5 boroughs, and you're pretty sure most of them don't contain someone whose faith can touch you in this way. Yet, you've become wary. They just might. Still, tonight the cathedral looks as before, a striking landmark acting as a symbol of faith for people who have no idea that vampires exist in their midst. For them, questions of faith and myth are theoretical or philosophical. For you, those same questions suddenly define the meaning of your new existence. You sneak into the cathedral like an old hand, as if going to church has been a regular part of your life. Inside, the cathedral is almost deserted. You're not sure if you'll be meeting Beniot alone. The idea of feeling Father Anthony's faith on your undead flesh freezes you with terror. Beniot is waiting for you in the front pews of the cathedral in the exact same spot where you saw Father Anthony. Worried, you approach, but you don't feel the touch of faith that shook you before. Beniot nods as you sit next to him in the pew. I don't like this, Beniot, but I guess a lot of kindred are worried about what they really are. You can't walk away. Many of our kind choose to live in ignorance of what it really means to be damned. You've had some time to think. I'm guessing you found the touch of Father Anthony's faith hard to ignore. For most people, God's presence is a question of faith. When I talk with Father Anthony, it feels like proof. Beniot is fervent, intense as he speaks. It's clear these questions have consumed his existence. Perhaps they'll consume yours, too. Even if we don't believe, this is kindred culture. Our shared stories about where we came from, right? That's one way to look at it. Our religions can be reduced to cultural myths if you are so inclined. Personally, I think the reality of our condition proves this is more than myth. Beniot looks around reflexively to make sure nobody is listening. There are only a few people in the enormous cathedral, and they don't seem to be interested in the 2 loners murmuring to each other in a front pew. It might seem like ancient history, things that happened thousands of years ago, but time works differently for our kind. If the stories are true, there are Methuselahs still in existence who walked the earth when Jesus was alive. Only problem is that old vampires lie. They adjust history to suit their egos. Shouldn't we focus on what we can verify here and now? Our blood, the effects of Father Anthony's belief? I suppose that would be the scientific approach. Still, can't let go of the idea that the old stories will tell us something. This is how the story goes. God curses Cain as punishment for the murder of Abel. Cain walked the night shunned by humanity and drank blood to sustain himself. Even from the point of our origin, we are damned. However, the story becomes really interesting when we move forward. Cain creates more of our kind, often referred to as the second generation. They lived in the first city, later called Enoch, ruling openly over the city's human inhabitants. I see the first city as Cain's redemption, cursed by God to wander. He made himself as a ruler and a lawgiver, acting as immortal shepherd to humanity. Not only started to go wrong when the second generation begat the third and vampires started to run amok. So, the third generation, also known as the Antediluvians, who founded the great vampire clans, you can trace a direct lineage of blood to the Antediluvian of your clan. We know much more about them than we know about the second generation. After the first city, Cain largely departs the story. Perhaps he was disheartened by the depredations of its descendants. The Antediluvians went on to build a second city in imitation of the first, but it's doubtful their rule was just. There are a few people moving in the cathedral, and both you and Beniot made sure none to get close enough to hear you talk. Many of the people you see have been elderly or disabled, so it's not surprising that you hear the squeak of a wheelchair. What alarms you more is that you overhear an older woman speaking with a Russian accent mention Father Anthony. Let's find Father Anthony. Oh boy. Let's find Father Anthony and see if he can help us. From what I heard, he is an exceptional man. You turn to look to see two men and a woman. All three are in their 50s, clearly well worn by life. One of the men pushes the woman in a wheelchair. She's dark-haired and intense, seemingly only half in this world. Yeah, exceptional. He does not like moles. The speaker is shorter of the men, more animated and worried. He's probably a stronger man in his youth, perhaps even an athlete. His voice, he's Midwestern. Voice carries a Midwestern accent. We're not only interested in whether he likes blank bodies. You and Beniot look at each other. This is bad news. Whoever these three are, they can't be good for you. We need to get out of here. Let's meet outside. Better not call attention to yourself. You decide to move to the side of the cathedral and pretend to pray in an altar. You walk casually toward the side, away from the three approaching mortals. You feel their eyes boring into your back, but you force yourself to be cool. Beniot is nowhere to be seen. You blinked and he disappeared in a burst of speed. You worried it was too conspicuous, but maybe the mortals missed it. You pretend to admire the architecture for a while before glancing back at the trio. They have settled the exact spot you just occupied, apparently waiting for something and conversing in hushed tones. Once you're sure their attention is elsewhere, you start walking briskly down the side aisle towards the exit. That was a close call. Who were those three? Did you recognize them? I might have. I'm not sure. There's no taking a few tenacious... There's talk of a few tenacious vampire hunters living in the city. One of them is supposed to be a woman in a wheelchair. For a second, Beniot looks at you as if he's wondering whether he should say something. There's one thing I've always wondered about the story of Cain. The traditions of the Camarilla put a lot of faith in the relationship between sire and child. You're supposed to follow the example of your maker. Yet Cain didn't really seem to care for the vampires he embraced. Did he think it was a mistake to create our kind? We should make our own way in the world. All this talk of Cain, sires, childhood, makes me think we're bound to hierarchy forever. We are, my friend. We are. Unless you want to go anarch. You know, I'm Sophie's child and you're her prodigy. It's amazing that we share an appreciation for the mythologies of our kind, considering Sophie has little interest in question of the spirit. You stare at Beniot. You know there was something he wasn't telling you, but in all this talk of Cain and the First City, you forgot about it. Now the only question, what does this mean? Does Sophie know her child is talking to you? Probably not.
Hey, don't hold it against me, but I admit finding some pleasure in seeing you suffer the effect of Father Anthony's faith. I suppose that's the demon in me. I understand that you're bitter, Beniat. I'm not your enemy. I'm sorry, I know that. It's just that sometimes I too get tempted by sin. You know, we could meet again. We talk so much about myth, but maybe that's cowardly when the reality of faith is right in front of us. I'll introduce you to Father Anthony. You nod, unsure whether that's a good idea. Beniat walks away and you follow his example, not wanting to hang around the cathedral any longer.
Sophie requests your presence tonight, and it seems urgent. You find her already waiting for you and clearly pondering something. It takes a few minutes of awkward silence before she speaks. I require your assistance, Merrick. There is a matter of great importance I need to ask you to resolve for me. You will find what I'm about to say surprising, I'm sure, but I need you to hear me out. I need you to contact an important anarch figure in New York City and arrange a meeting for us.
What business do you have meeting anarchs? They're the enemies of the Camarilla, isn't that right?
That's normally true. There is much bad blood between our factions, but it is not as simple as a state of constant war. You will find that with this, as with many other things, Camarilla's policies have more than their share of hypocrisy inherent in them. It comes hand in hand with using medieval power structures. What we are forbidden to do, the prince may do willingly. Some of those things can be done in the open, while others are kept secret as to not invite discord and discontent. I need to contact a man named Torque. He is an influential member of the movement and, like most of them, very suspicious of the Camarilla. That's why I'm sending you to extend my invitation.
What are you scheming, Sophie? Say I arrange the meeting. What next?
I have something to offer Torque. A chance to set things straight, both for the Anarchs and for us. Especially for us. From my limited sources adjacent to the movement, I've gathered that your best chance to speak to Torque is to first meet his right-hand woman Mia. She's a regular at a club called the Leech Pit. I think it would be best if you present yourself as an anarch hopeful, a fledgling looking for a place of belonging. Only after you talk to Torque directly should you mention my name and the meeting.
I don't think that that's the right approach. Lying to them won't make them trust me. When they find out the truth, they won't be happy or eager to work with us.
That might be true, but if you tell Mia outright that I sent you, she'll likely cut you off. She hates our sect, and it will be difficult to make her listen to reason. After tonight, I suggest that we do not speak of this again until you arrange the meeting. There are many who would jump at the chance to use this against us. With Kaiser, you have proven you can get the job done, even if it requires additional legwork. I trust you to deal with this task as quickly and covertly as possible. Forgive me, but that's all the time I can spare tonight. What I'm asking of you is just part of a bigger whole. Trust me, it will all be worth it. Okay, I'll do my best. I know you will. Check with Gregory from the address of the Leech Pit. Have Mia introduce you to Torque. Because when she does, tell him I wish to meet. Let him pick the time and place, but let it be soon. If he proves too guarded, tell him I have something that will help him gather our allies against Boss Callahan. That should pique his interest. Good luck, and obviously, not a word about this to anyone else, even after any new friends you might have made in recent nights. This stays between us. The way she says the final sentence suggests not so veiled threat, but her warm smile belies that impression. You want her to keep trusting you. You wouldn't want to disappoint her. Gregory gives you the address. The club is in Brooklyn. Apparently it's some kind of heavy metal bar with a dedicated concert space. Time to pay Mia a visit. The place is teeming with people tonight. You arrive in the middle of a concert. The music is loud, almost deafening, and it takes you a while to get used to it. You recognize a phrase or two of the lyrics and realize you know the song they're playing. A poster confirms your suspicion. It's a Life of Agony tribute band, and they're not half bad. A group of few dozen patrons are tightly packed together, and the smell of their sweat and youthful, excited blood overwhelms you momentarily. It's with some difficulty that you turn to the task at hand. You've heard your share of the anarchs and how they fit in the conjured politics, but you only have your short encounter in Corona Park on... I'm gonna turn this down. On which to base your actual opinion of the faction. That might have just been a horrible first impression, but you're keeping your guard up just in case. You start at the bar. Mia was supposed to be a regular. Might as well check how true that is. The bartender turns to you after she pours a line of drinks for erratic patrons. What can I get you? Hey, you seen Mia tonight? Depends who's asking. She gives you a sly smile. What do you want with her? I just wanted to meet her. She's kind of a local legend. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Go to where the crowd is. She's the small girl in the big jacket. Have fun. She winks at you. You approach the bartender indicated, and the band takes a break. Heard this is the spot to meet hot chicks who hate patriarchy. Anarchs, you say? Ugh, seriously? That's the best line you can come up with. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't hit you either. Follow me behind the bar. She leads you through the bar to the back door that leads into a side room. Indie metal band posters are plastered on every wall, some of them 20 or more years old, judging by the tour dates. An old, sticky table and some rickety chairs are the only pieces of furniture here. Sit down. Sure. You take a seat as the woman leans against one of the walls. The name's Mia. I'm guessing your visit here isn't a happy coincidence. I don't know you. So you either new to New York or kept an outstandingly low profile. Both sound suspect, so before we take these pleasantries further, answer me this. Who do you run with? Camarilla, I guess. But I'm looking to switch. Is that so? She looks you up and down. It's hard to read her. Okay, sure, I'll bite. Let's get one thing out of the way. She leans in. If this is some clever ploy to oust me from my domain, or if you're just here to spy on me and the movement, I'll make sure you don't enjoy undeath much longer. Got it? You can tell it's a purely rhetorical question. Right. Here's the pitch. The Camarilla likes to think they're the vanilla option, but with Prince Bitch Panhard pretending that They were always in charge, but New York was never been fully a cami city. They might have won in the city in '99, but cams have had their asses handed to them many times over the years, and the movement has been here at least as long as they have. Hell, I moved to New York City before World War II, and that was a good while after I saw the Camarilla for what they are. A while to keep us all subverted in line. The Ivory Tower will tell you they're the only safeguard for the traditions. And that's kind of the problem. There's only one tradition we in the movement feel should be respected. Masquerade, obviously. Everything else, ask the prince and she'll tell you it's the logical continuation of the Masquerade. But really, it's just a way to keep the elders powerful and in control. She grimaces. But here's the thing. For all the talk of us bloodsuckers being solitary creatures, we need a community to keep up the Masquerade. Community, yes. But authority? Not so much. We need a council of peers to keep these assholes and power-drunk fledglings in check, but not a feudal prince to tell you where to feed or who to hunt down when they step on her toes. She takes a brief break from her indignant rant. So, you anarchs don't have a ruler? A ruler? No. But leaders? Sure. Most follow old boss Callahan's lead. You make it sound like it's most, but not you? Yeah, not me. You're concerned about being well received in this city. You might need to go through Callahan. But if you're serious about the Anarch cause itself, he's not your guy. Callahan eats up fledglings like you and shits out self-preservation. His position as Baron is mighty shaky now, not least due to the fact he's backstabbed more than his share of allies. So he's doing what any other old fart in a position of power would do. He's doubling down. Negotiations are out, intimidation is in, tightening ranks as a precaution against the Second Inquisition. She surprises you by hacking and splitting on the ground in disgust. You've spent some time with Cams. That should sound very familiar to you. He's no better than Panhard, and her cronies are at this point. No better than Panhard and her cronies at this point. No, you need to contact Torque. And wouldn't you know it, it's your lucky night, because I'm the lick to do it. How is he different from Callahan? Motherfucker, you're really asking for it. Her anger flares up again. I'll pretend that was just a naive question and not a half-assed jab. Torque is a leader. A local baron who's overseeing a small domain, but doing a very good job of it. Callahan knows this, so he's giving him shit. Torque is taking it like a champ. He's smart like that. For one of his rebels, he's got the patience of a saint. Makes you think back to how things used to be back when, if the stories are to believe. Anyway, you want to meet him? I'm going to require a show of goodwill first. That's fair. What do you have in mind? She flashes you a mischievous half-smile. I appreciate your readiness, but I don't have the details just now. Ask for me at the bar when you're able. I'll leave something for you and we'll take it from there. I feel like it's going to be loud again. Now come on, I gotta go. She walks you out of the bar, and you go your separate ways. It seems like there's nothing more to do than return here later and see if Mia really can help you contact Torque. One moment. Approaching the cathedral on the street makes you nervous. You've been here twice. Twice something bad has happened. Or almost happened, as in both cases you ran away. Benny had suggested it's time to stop running and experience faith head on. Perhaps he's right. Maybe it is cowardly to take refuge in rationalizations when you know what you felt. The holiness of the priests and your own damnation. Walking towards the doors of the cathedral, you glance at the bench where you sat when you first met Beniat. He's waiting for you, sitting and contemplating the cathedral's Gothic architecture. I wasn't certain I even wanted to talk to you after last time. I understand. I'm happy you chose to come. Beniat looks different than before. Intense. Certain. You've had some time to think about what we spoke before. I want to learn more about Cain and where we all came from. In good time, I have something different in mind for tonight, which you surely remember. Let's go see Father Anthony. It's best not to talk in the cathedral, so I arranged for us to see him at his home. I have a car nearby. This better be on the level, Beniat. Or beyond that kind of tough talk, don't you think? You follow Beniat as he walks down the street until you come to his car. Surprisingly pedestrian family sedan. The essence of the Masquerade is in conspicuousness. Nobody expects a vampire to drive a car like this. Beniat drives north towards Queens. During these moments, you feel mostly anonymous. Just another speck of dust in a vast machine where every action influences the whole in tiny ways. The only thing you've learned about the kindred is that they are not lacking in self-regard. The prince of a Camarilla city is said to rule the domain, yet how much do they really affect mortal affairs? If you ask a vampire, they'll say a lot. Perhaps that's what made Beniat turn inward. The futility of finding meaning in a secret, predatory existence. Beniat stops in front of a red brick row house. A little run down, but probably not cheap. Beniat notes your interest. Father Anthony comes with an old New York family. He's inherited the house. When I first met him, I was suspicious, so I checked up on him. Despite the way he's putting you in dangerous situations, kindred paranoia seems to come naturally to Beniat, perhaps. Perhaps there's something you can learn from him. He knows we're vampires, right? Yes, he knows. Yes, he knows. He doesn't know everything I told you about Cain and the first city and so on, but he knows we're no longer human. You follow Beniat to the stairs, looking around for any sign of an ambush. As you get to the door, the first signs of trepidation hit you. The discomfort, the pain that'll follow once you're inside. It feels like a physical thing, a burning sensation under your skin, in your blood. You look to see how Beniat is taking it. He's smiling, eyes closed for a second before knocking on the door, almost as if he's enjoying the sensation. The door opens and you see Father Anthony's kindly face. Your body feels as if in a vice. You haven't really been bothered by hot or cold since you were embraced, but now it feels like the surface of your skin is overwhelmed with sensation. The fear and terror are paralyzing. Yes. You barely hear Beniat's whisper. Come in, you two. I might not know much, but I know enough not to do this on the porch. You force yourself to follow Father Anthony into the apartment. Despite the splitting headache and rising panic, it's hard to take in your surroundings. Everything seems to vibrate, seeking to engulf you. Framed portraits on a mantelpiece, a cross on the wall, a living room with lots of books, many of them old.
I'm not sure I can offer you anything. You don't drink tea, I suppose?
No, we don't.
We're fine, thank you, Father. Are you sure you're okay? You look distressed. Please, Father. You know this is difficult for us. You'll forgive me if I don't waste time.
Father Anthony looks pained, whether because of the rudeness or out of sympathy for your condition. You can't tell. He motions for you to sit down, but you and Beniot are both too agitated to do so. You feel trapped, like a moth being smeared against a burning light bulb. It's hard to look at Father Anthony, but you can't look at anything else either. Beniot is starting to look increasingly unhinged. His eyes look as if he's seen into some divine beyond just outside the grasp of your senses. Now is the time, my friend. You have to decide if you're ready for salvation. Prove your faith by embracing the Father and letting his radiance envelop you. This was a mistake. I have to go. Something hits you in the face and fall to your knees. If you were human, you'd be bleeding all over your clothes. Now you just feel pieces of your teeth inside your mouth. Beniot stands over you with a heavy candlestick. It's too late to back out now. God's grace is with us. Startled, Father Anthony takes a step back.
Beniot, what are you doing?
Father, it's time to be redeemed for both of us. Beniot falls to his knees next to you, lifting his face in full embrace of the holy agony.
This is not right, Beniot. Everyone has a chance for salvation. I understand there's something in God's presence that burns you, but you can work through it. Please, Beniot. There are many paths to salvation, and we will find yours. I won't hurt you and your friend.
Beniot moans in pain, stricken with grief and disbelief at Father Anthony's refusal.
Please, Father. They don't even believe.
Not truly. Father Anthony looks at you and seems to waver. Even his belief in salvation has limits. This has gone too long. You must summon the last reserves of your blood and escape. In less time than it takes to blink, you're at the door outside, using your vampiric speed to escape the pain and fear of Father Anthony's holy presence. You're about to stop at the curb, but glancing back, you realize Beniot is right behind you. The philosophical, rueful Beniot is gone. Instead, you see a man twisted by resentment and abandonment, burning with hate towards you. The mask is off, and you realize he wanted you to burn under Father Anthony's touch, even if he has to force you to do it. You're fast enough that, for most bystanders, you're just a blur, a quick movement that's already gone by the time they started paying attention. Still, rain on the streets does no favors to the Masquerade. There are 1,000 cameras on the streets of New York, and as you run past pedestrians, the odds of someone starting to wonder increase. Beniot is past carrying. You hear a low growl as he gains on you, fangs out, ready to tear at your neck. You duck into an alley, hoping there's somewhere for you to go. A homeless man stares right at you as you streak past. Beniot can't be far behind. It's not very dignified. The beggars can't be choosers. You jump into a dumpster and pull the lid closed. You lie still in the stench of the garbage. In moments like these, you're grateful for not having to breathe. Is Beniot still outside? Did he fall for it? You wait for what seems like an eternity before you cautiously lift the lid on the dumpster. Just the alley. Benyat is nowhere in sight. You escaped. You're safe, but the implications of your experience are troubling. What does this mean? Whether practical or spiritual, it feels like you have to think about this for a long time. You're free to return to your haven, and there's a distinct temptation to keep the events of the night to yourself. Yet these events can't be good for the Masquerade. Sometimes the right choice is to do nothing at all. You walk back to your haven, alone as usual, among the people who crowd the New York sidewalks even at night. Holiness hurts. That's the inescapable conclusion from what happened. Hard to say what words like salvation and damned mean in modern nights, but the way you felt in Father Anthony's presence is an unavoidable fact. Father Anthony's faith is the key. You could walk into a church and fondle a cross to your heart's content. None of that means anything. It's only the presence of a living faith that holiness becomes manifest. Perhaps one day you'll have the courage to go back to Father Anthony. You arrive at the leech pit, finding it less rowdy than the last time. The bar is still packed, but the dance floor is empty tonight. Instead, the old crackling speakers are playing music that would probably sound like noise even on high-end hardware. Mia is nowhere to be seen, but you do remember... Oh, it's still gonna... even though the audio quote-unquote changed. Mia is nowhere to be seen, but you do remember she requested that you ask for her at the bar. You know the face behind the bar. The woman doesn't seem to recognize you, though. You imagine you were just another patron in a sea of strangers the other night. What can I get you? I was told that someone might have left a message for me at the bar. Ring a bell? Maybe. She looks you up and down, and a spark of recollection shines in her eyes. Oh yeah, that's right. She takes a well-worn book from behind the counter, some kind of young adult vampire novel, and flips through it. She produces a piece of paper from between the book's pages and passes it to you. She told me you'd be interested in reading this. You find a relatively quiet corner and take a look at the note. T wants to meet you. I'll arrange it, but you need to prove yourself trustworthy. Look around the leech pit for a guy named Bruce. Buff dude. Tattoo sleeve on his right arm. 90% sure he's someone's retainer, sent here to spy on us by the cam. Give me the name of his master and write it on the card, and return it to the bar. Doesn't take you long to locate the Bruce guy. He sits alone in the corner, 2 beer glasses already empty on his table. You take a moment to consider your approach. You figure you have time to feed before confronting this guy. You keep your eye on him, but look for a good opportunity in the meantime. Wouldn't you know it, a half-passed out patron near the toilets is almost begging for someone's attention. You prop him up, as if to help him stand straight. His breath reeks of alcohol. You bite into his neck right above his tank top. Careful to drink just a little. And quickly. You don't get to enjoy the full palate. It is the closest to a beer that you've had in a while, though. The man slumps in your arms, mumbles something under his breath, and you settle him down gently near the emptied kegs in the back. Somebody will come and pick him up, for sure. Temporarily sated, you turn your attention back to the task at hand. That's when you lock eyes with Bruce. He's been standing there, just meters away, and for a while, you think. He slinks away through the main area and walks outside. He knows what you are, for sure. You follow him out, expecting to have to run after him, but he's there, having a cigarette.
Yo, I had the feeling you'd be joining me. You smoke?
He pushes the lighter close to you. The flame triggering a primal fear in you that forces you to take a step back and bump into another patron who's just leaving the bar.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Were you staring at me at the bar before? What did you want?
I'm on business. I'm here on business. I want to know who you serve, and then I'll be gone. 2 words. Blow. He breathes cigarette smoke straight into your face. Me. He flicks the cigarette at you, and you flinch. That's all it takes for him to dash away, much faster than a human should be able to. He's bolting all right. Throwing caution to the wind, you focus your blood and give chase after Bruce. He might be faster than a human, but his abilities are a fraction of yours. He dashes into a nearby alley, and you follow suit. Before he can jump the fence, you tackle him to the ground. A short brawl later, you're standing a few meters apart, Bruce eyeing you with hatred. You clash again, but this time you're not pulling any punches. Bruce's ribs crack. You dislocate his shoulder, break a few of his teeth. When you're done with him, he's a mess.
Fuck. Please. No more, man. Oh, please.
Ready to talk?
Samira. Her name is Samira, okay? Just no more, please.
You leave him there, battered and alone. He should have talked when he had the chance. Or at least that's what you're telling yourself as you make your way back to the leech pit. Time to leave something for Mia. You borrow a pen from the bar and flip Mia's note to the other side. Samira. Put the name down on a piece of paper, hoping you got it right. You pass the piece of paper to the bartender. She sticks it in the back of the same book. Hold on 1 second. She wanted me to pass something on to you. She produced a cell phone from behind the counter. It's ancient, at least 15 years out of date. Oh, right. And this. An old charger for the piece of junk in your hand. They really did think of everything. She said she'll be in touch. Takes you a moment to remind yourself how to operate this thing, and find that its phone book is blank. There's no Wi-Fi connectivity and no saved messages. It's got a version of Snake, though. The bartender is already over at the other end of her domain, taking orders from patrons. With your Anarch contact nowhere in sight, you decide to move on for the night. Hopefully your educated guesses, based on the scraps of info you collected, will be enough for Mia to call you. There's a sleazy reporter from a gossip magazine sniffing around Sophie's haven. She could use your help with the problem. The streetlights filter into the apartment in a stark white glow, as if someone were shooting a movie outside. The art pieces displayed as a tasteful expense entirely fitting the image you have of Sophie. It feels as if 1,000 sins have been committed on these premises, most of them under her benevolent hospitality. Sophie comes to greet you as you enter the living room, shaking her head. You understand that people judge me based on how you dress, don't you? Sophie looks at your clothes as if resigned to your sartorial limitations. I've tried to dress inconspicuously because of the masquerade. That's very sensible of you. I suppose I should commend you for that. Sophie walks to the window and looks out, the streetlights playing on her features. She reminds you of a queen contemplating the unfortunate limitations of her subjects. You'd think that as a vampire, at least we wouldn't have to worry about the vultures of the press. Unfortunately, when you have power and ability, there are always parasites trying to feed on you. I used to have a journalist friend. Then you know what they're like. Sophie steps away from the window and settles down on the sofa. A wine glass with red liquid in it. Blood, treated as not to spoil. You've become good at noticing the scent, even from a distance. She doesn't offer you any as you cautiously sit down across from her. This awful man has been stalking my apartment with a camera. He's gone through my trash, talked to my neighbors. Please be a dear and explain to him that there's nothing for him here. Is this about the masquerade? That's a big deal for us, right? Indeed, you're learning. This must happen often. How do you usually deal with it? Everyone has their own ways. Sometimes the problem goes away with a bit of money or sharp words. Other times you need something more. Do you know anything about this reporter? Man, woman, young, old, anything like that? All gossip reporters look the same to me. Time for you to go. I have business to attend to. You leave the apartment as Sophie disappears into another room. You don't have a clear idea of the game she plays with the city's mortal and immortal power structures, but she always seems to be making a move. Outside on the street, there's a slight warm drizzle, the kind that gets under your clothes and makes you want to take a shower when you get back to your own haven. No reporters immediately jump out to you. You start with the basics of investigative work. You ask the proprietor of the bodega around the corner, the homeless man sleeping in a nearby doorway, and the doorman of another building, whether they've seen anyone strange. Detective work produces results. You get the descriptions of a man who sounds like a reporter. Older, overweight, pasty, and in bad physical condition. Professional camera. Once you know what you're looking for, it's not difficult. You spot a man who matches the description and follow him. You enter an alley, a dark, dingy space between two tall buildings. Once upon a time, a place like this might have worried you, made you think of muggings and violence. Now it's clear that the most dangerous thing here is you. The man you were following seems to realize this too. He holds his camera in front of him like a shield. Its heavy objective resting in his paunch. At the start, you recognize him. You remember the face, the shaded sunglasses, from a picture next to a byline in some trashy paper you were reading to kill time. Something about celebrities, scandal, sex. His name is Frank Doherty. You saw him on the street one time, with a camera outside a nightclub, probably waiting for someone important to come outside so he could take their picture.
Hey, don't go around scaring people like that.
Wow, you're Frank Doherty? I'm a huge fan. Love your work.
Thank you. It's nice to have one's work appreciated.
A lot of scoops here in this dirty alley?
Can't be a journalist if you're not willing to get your hands dirty. Do you live here? I'm working on a story about a local resident. Her name's Sophie Langley. Everybody knows her in high society circles. She's a redhead, pretty as a picture. And there were a lot of pictures of her throughout the years. That's the thing, in fact. Look at this.
Frank pulls out his phone and starts showing you pictures. Some have been downloaded from news sites, while others are photos from the society pages of newspapers from past decades. All show Sophie. She has different clothes, hairstyles, makeup, names, but the face remains the same.
So you're a stalker of sorts. Come on, I'm just doing my job.
So why does this matter?
Maybe it doesn't, but people are always interested in staying young. 3 words. Extreme plastic surgery. All the celebrities do it. Only her doctor is better than the rest.
You look critically at the photos on Frank's phone.
Sure, I guess. If you find who the surgeon is, let me know. I could have some work done. You're right. It makes no sense. Damn. So how would you explain it?
Have you considered the possibilities that those pictures are a hoax?
Sure, anything could be a hoax. But I dug up those old papers from the archives myself. I gotta have something usable.
The powers of the blood make kindred fearsome killers. Looking at Frank, you decide that you can administer this beatdown without help from your undead nature. Nothing personal, friend. You punch Frank in the mouth. Perhaps the most important thing about your new vampiric existence is getting used to violence. You have to hunt. Defend yourself. Frank falls down on one knee. This is not defending yourself.
Please don't.
You smack Frank across the face. You feel his perspiration sticking to your skin. Blood wells from his mouth, and you have a sudden urge to bite down and drink. Sophie probably wouldn't appreciate a corpse in an alley next to her home, so you restrain yourself. Frank is on all fours on the wet ground. You pick up his camera and casually fling it into the wall. The telephoto lens breaks off.
Oh my god, please, don't.
Run your mouth, and I'll break the rest of your teeth. Frank staggers upright and runs out the alley as best he's able, leaving his ruined camera behind. You look after his receding figure, wondering if he'll have the courage to return. Ooh. And we'll take a break here. I need to get some food, so we'll take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back in a little bit after I'm done with that. So, thanks for tuning in.